What is the One Brothas Mind Channel? It's a broadcast that presents helpful and enlightening information, critical thinking on topics, and where solutions and research information will be highlighted. It's also where the mainstream and popular beliefs and views will be consistently challenged. We're logical, critical, and discerning outside the box thinkers, where that type of thinking is required. One Brothas Mind will also highlight other quality information sources and channels, so be sure to check out our channel subscription lists. We have a wide variety of quality, proven quality, other YouTube channels that provide extensive levels of value for your enjoyment. Next question. Who is Katie Smooth? I am a foundational Black American living within the American system of white supremacy. I am a follower of Yeshua the Christ and a Black Hebrew Israelite descendant of the tribe of Judah. My belief is based on biblical scripture from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, but specifically chapter 28, verse 68. And the additional historical, biblical, and documented historical record of Judah's disbursement into Portugal, North and West Africa during Israel's captivity and after the Romans destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD. At that time and later, many descendants from the tribe of Judah were captured into slave ships during the transatlantic slave trade. There are many additional scriptures and historical records and facts that confirm my belief. I must say though, on this issue, you must complete your own personal research. That's required. I also plan on a future broadcast covering this issue. More about Katie Smooth. I was raised a Baptist and I still hold to that foundation. The only addition to that foundation is that I did my research and confirmed my true identity. I also am of mixed heritage from the true natives of Turtle Island. For those that don't know, that's currently the land that we call America. I also believe that all foundational Black Americans are from this same heritage or mixed heritage, including the Caribbean family descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. To be clear, I repeat, I am not connected or affiliated with any other Hebrew Israelite group or organization. I speak only for myself, and no other person or group speaks for me. I advocate for foundational Black Americans' full freedom, reparations now, or you won't get our vote. Also, black economic empowerment and buying black within the black community. I also advocate for black owned and controlled K-12 schools, black police officer only policing in our communities, in the black communities, and acquiring and reacquiring of land that was stolen from foundational black Americans here in the U.S. history. I also advocate for the restoration of black love, marriages, and strong families. And for black people to know that we don't always have to walk the provided, required yellow brick road of how to do and live here in America. In fact, historically, we've often not done that. We've made and carved our own path. And we need to continue to do that. In fact, do that more today. Now, with that said, to be clear, no, I do not hate white people. I repeat, I do not hate white people or anyone else. I've met, worked with, made friends with, laughed, and broke bread with a number of cool white people. With that said, I've always known that we don't agree or share all of the same views on many issues. But I don't agree 100% with no one, including many black people. So, to my white listeners, get out your feelings and keep your disrespectful comments to yourself. I am B1, Black First. To describe what that means, for those who don't know, imagine briefly if you were in an unfortunate car accident and you sustained multiple injuries. When you arrive at the hospital, the doctors are going to assess and triage your injuries. They're going to identify which injuries are the most severe, and they are going to work on those injuries first. They're going to focus on those severe injuries. Not that the other injuries you may have are not important, but their focus will be your most severe injuries, and then they will work down the list from there. The one thing I do hate and stand in 100% contrast with is the American system of white supremacy and privilege, as well as any other system of supremacy throughout the world. It is my belief that systems of supremacy are satanic in origin and nature. The good news about the American system of white supremacy is that it is currently being destroyed, because it was prophesied in scripture long ago. The 400 years is up, y'all. And if you've been paying attention over the last year and a half, maybe two, America is crumbling right before your very eyes. Again, I am a follower of Yeshua the Christ, and not the Christ that most Christians claim. I follow the Christ, the revolutionary, the lonely path walker, truth spitter, money table flipper, all powerful Yeshua the Christ that is soon to return. I follow the Christ that called the scribes and Pharisees during his time on earth. And for those that don't know, the scribes and Pharisees were the Jewish authorities at that time. He called them serpents, vipers, hypocrites, full of dead men's bones and all uncleanliness. In addition, I am a divorced black father of 2 that raised my children full time, myself, for 13 years and counting. I've also had the honor of being selected by God to love, raise, and protect one of his autistic treasures in my wonderful son. I am a critical, outside-the-box thinker and doer. A brief example of this is at the time of my graduation and while I was in high school, under the guidance of my parents, especially my father, I was directed to take advantage of a vocational program that my high school offered. I did that. I actually took a 3-year electronics certification program while in high school. At the same time I was in high school, I also worked a part-time / full-time job. And while working this job and trying to make my decisions about college, I noticed that I was working with people who were current college students as well as recent college graduates, which that bothered me as far as them being recent college graduates. So I went to each of those recent graduates and sat and talked with them and asked them questions. Primarily the question, why are you working at the same job that I'm working and you're a recent college graduate? And by the way, y'all, I worked at the Sizzler. The Sizzler, we go, yeah. And surprisingly, each of the recent college graduates gave me the exact same response, almost verbatim. The response was, well, once you graduate college, it's going to take up to 2 years before you land a job in your career field of study. Now, I realized that each one of them said that individually. So that raised major red flags to me that identified to me that the whole student loan system for college was a hustle, a scam. And so I then set a path to come up with alternative options for college. And I continued my research. And I continued talking to other people. I talked to, at the time, current college co-workers. And I asked them, why are you working and going to college at the same time? Some of them were full-time, part-time, and others were just the opposite. And each of them, in their own words, explained to me their primary purpose was to graduate college with 0 student loan debt. As soon as I heard that, bing, bell went off in my head. That's what I'm going to do. Because the last thing I wanted to do was, at the beginning of my adult life, start off buried deep under major student loan debt. Side note, parents and upcoming high school graduates, message. So that became my plan, but I didn't stop there. I continued to research, and I confirmed at the time that most of the largest employers in my city also offered tuition reimbursement programs to their employees. So I added that factor to my plan, and at the time of graduation, as I shared my plan with others, students, they all looked at me like I was crazy. I mean, I was like the only one that were either they were taking out student loans and going off to college, or they weren't going to college at all. As far as my classmates, I was kind of stuck in the middle. They was giving me nothing but side eye. Like, yeah, right. The older people I talked to and family members was, when I told them my plan, they looked at me like I was crazy, including my parents. You gonna mess yourself up. You need to not do that. You need to do it the right way. And I'm like, yeah, okay. That went one ear and out the other. Because I refused to bury myself under student loan debt. So, long story short, my plan ultimately not only ended up working, but it ended up working way better than I imagined. Now, I will say this. The whole aspect of getting a job, any job at one of the larger employers, that took me some time. But I stayed at it. It took way more time than I wanted it to, but it finally worked out. And once I was employed by a major employer here in my area, and just before I was about to start my college classes, the employer had a wide variety of jobs and career options within the company. So just before I started my college classes, I noticed that there was a job opening with interesting qualifications. The qualifications were required associate's degree in electronics or the equivalent. Yeah, you guessed it. I already had the equivalent in my 3-year vocational certification. So I applied and was given the job 4 days later. That was my entry to my career field as being a biomedical technician. For those who don't know, that is servicing and repairing medical equipment. So it worked out great. I spent over 20 years in that profession, and I enjoyed pretty much every minute of it. Now, moving further, what is the purpose of the One Brothas Mind channel? Well, first is to discuss, reach, teach, and open and expand the minds of Black people while providing practical and at times uncommon solutions to the enemy and opposition that we face. Also, we will stress the point that there is almost always other options, contrary to your first or main thought or plan. And before you decide or act, you need to identify as many other options as possible. If need be, by way of humbling yourself and asking others for information, like I did in my youth. The channel will also highlight the following: that Christ, or being a Christ follower, making positive changes and choices in your life usually will require you to leave your comfort zone, humble yourself,